There's been a lot of coverage recently of the Notting Hill Carnival in West London, and the problems it has once again attracted. This is one of those videos, if possible. Of course, anyone can respond to this, but I'd be particularly interested in hearing the views of Londoners, particularly anyone who may be in that area, because of course you will have a perspective that I don't. Um, I'm not in London, so I'm an outsider looking in. But I think it's quite clear that this event has problems. So I'm going to read out from the source is My London News. It's not too long, so I'll just read it out. All to Notting Hill Carnival to be scrapped after death, stabbings, and sex assaults, as well as a fatal stabbing. A female police officer was reportedly sexually assaulted, and 34 officers are said to have been injured. I've actually heard two female officers were sexually assaulted in another source. The chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation has suggested the Notting Hill Carnival must not be allowed to take place again. It comes after the weekend of community celebration was marred by suspected murder, multiple stabbings, and sex assaults. More than 2 million people are thought to have descended on Notting Hill across the 3 days of Carnival. However, more than 200 people were arrested at the event, and seven stabbings, one of which was fatal, um, were reported. The man stabbed to death at the Notting Hill Carnival on Monday was 21-year-old Zakayo Nemhard, a rapper from Bristol known as T-Court Stretch. Apparently, he had a pregnant girlfriend. Dozens of police officers were also assaulted, with 34 said to have been injured, and a female officer was reportedly sexually assaulted after being grabbed in headlock. Disgrace. The Telegraph reports one policing source claiming officers conducted 441 stop and searches and had seized a record number of knives. It went on to quote another senior police figure saying that it was a completely unacceptable situation and that police pleas to scrap the event were repeatedly ignored every year. Ken Marsh, chairman of the Metropolitan Police Federation, described the fatal stabbing as a tragedy. He said, "Every year we argue that this event should not take place, but we are not listened to. There were 11,000 officers on duty across the weekend. Lots of them, this was their first experience of policing the carnival, and they have been left extremely shocked by what they have seen and been subjected to. Um, we are simply not listened to, and those who support the carnival do not seem to care what happens to police officers. The violence my colleague faced when policing this event seems to be the price we have to pay, and that is a completely unacceptable situation." Mayor of London Sadiq Khan said he was sickened by the fatal stabbing. "I'm sickened by this awful attack," Mr. Khan. Did he also condemn the arrests on the attacks on officers? I wonder. I'm sure he did, but there's an issue here with the political role, which I'll come back to. Violence has no place on the streets, and we're doing everything in our power to root it out. I urge anyone with information to contact the police on 101 or anonymously by at Crime Stoppers UK. There is no honour in staying silent. Just scrolling down the report, police said 209 arrests have been made at the carnival by early Tuesday, including 46 for assault, 36 for possession of drugs, 33 for possession of an offensive weapon, 27 public order offences, and 8 sexual assaults. So there was even more sexual assaults alongside those on the female officers. There were 35 arrests, the force labelled other, 10 for possession of psychoactive substances, 7 for drunk driving, 5 for criminal damage, and 1 each for theft and robbery. That's the end of the report. It's quite clear this thing has become just a crime fest, and that's thoroughly depressing. The Notting Hill Carnival is not new to violence, going right back to 1976. There were significant problems that year, but now it's just predictable. Every single year there's problems at this event. Now, I suppose people might say, well, 2 million people, it's a very large scale event. You're inevitably going to have some trouble. And on the surface, 209 arrests out of 2 million people might seem very small. But I think you have to look at other things. That's only the arrests that were made. Who knows what sort of crimes took place without being even reported? Okay, and the fact that residents have felt the need to board up their businesses during the event speaks volumes. Um, I think it's very troubling that the police have been calling for this to be scrapped and that hasn't happened. Now, I'm not sure what the procedure of this is. If it's to say of, I think it's Kensington and Chelsea Council, Kensington and Westminster, I think that council is. If they have the say on this, or whoever is giving the green light for this to go ahead, needs to really start listening. If that's the mayor's office, if that's Kensington and Westminster Council, um, actually, I think it's Kensington and Chelsea. Yeah, my mistake. I think it's City of Westminster and Kensington and Chelsea is the council that covers Notting Hill. Um, but that is a disgrace. I mean, it's a disgrace that residents are feeling the need to have to board up their businesses. It's a disgrace that the police are in a position. These are the people who are supposed to be keeping law and order or tasked with that. They're not being listened to. So I think I was going to say, the organisers should be given an ultimatum. I've changed my mind. I think it should be scrapped. No ultimatums. The pleas have already been made. This event hasn't changed. It happens every single year. Scrap the thing. Just scrap it. I mean, whoever is given the green light, like I say, it's uh, it's a disgrace. Um, and it's fine for Khan to condemn the violence, but frankly, he has enabled some of the culture that that allows this to happen. What I'm talking about is his hostility to stop and search, his pandering to groups like Black Lives Matter, which wants to totally abolish the police. Now, I was speaking about this on an LBC forum and I got into a test exchange with a guy, black guy who was insinuating racism. His point was, well, you get other large scale events. What about football matches with hooligans? What about pop concerts? Apparently, there was some trouble at the Reading Festival. Um, I'm not sure if those other events have problems on this scale. The football hooliganism, it's well established in this country. Unfortunately, it has reared its ugly head again in recent years. I've never equivocated on that. I think there should be zero tolerance for louts. I think they should be given extensive bans. I think they should be arrested. And if violence is involved, I think they should serve prison time. I think we should show zero tolerance to that ugly side of football hooliganism. I will say, though, that it's refreshing that when the women's team won this year, there was no trouble. There was no ugly jingoism, no arrests. It was a very commendable event because it was a big event, yet there was no trouble. There was passion, but there was no ugly displays of jingoism. There was no vandalism. There was no drunk idiots causing trouble, unlike the Euro final last year. So no one is saying that it's only the Notting Hill Carnival has problems. But put it this way, here in Sunderland, we have Europe's largest air show. It's been suspended the last few years because of the pandemic. I don't think it went ahead this year. Probably it will return next year. I hope it does because it's a great event. It's a family-friendly event. And here's the point. Sunderland has about 180,000 people. Sunderland Air Show can get up to a million people during the weekend, and there's very, very minimal problems. I honestly know of very little violence that's reported at it. Occasionally, you'll get complaints about bus services. You may occasionally get some complaints from residents. If you know Sunderland, we have a beachfront. There may be some residents complain about the crowd gathering, but overall, it's seen as a family-friendly event, um, and there's very little problems at it. So that just shows that this idea, oh well, a large-scale event's inevitably going to attack problems, some more so than others. The Notting Hill Carnival has problems, and this is not to stigmatize everyone who attends. I'm sure there are patrons who go just wanting to have a good time. The Times had this cover. Um, So it shows, it's a cultural event of West Indies music and culture. That's fine, okay. There will be a place for celebrating that. But when you have these consistent problems, you can't just dismiss it as a small thing. Um, and the fact of the matter is, Black Lives Matter have called for the police to be defunded. They're not saying we're just against police brutality. They want the police completely abolished. So how can the police be expected to do their job, i.e., stop and search, when every time they do, they're met with accusations of racism? Their hands are being tied. And I'm not someone to always defend the police. Indeed, my last video was criticising the police in that case in Chorley, Lancashire. My stance on the police is very much contextual. Contextual. As a broad situation, I think the police need to be supported. I think they need to be empowered to do their job to apprehend criminals. Sometimes their own decisions don't help. The police themselves have been pandering to groups like Black Lives Matter. People don't want to see them taking the knee. They want to see them arresting criminals. And it may well be that they say, well, we can't win here. We're being criticized for being racist, but here we are trying to reach out to this movement. Well, they can reach out, they can have dialogue, they can listen to the concerns, but they don't have to pander to that extent. Um, I just think that there is a really, really, really important act to be made here. The other thing, of course, is the Met needs to clean itself up. There are some absolutely rotten apples. There's some very corrupt officers. Those guys arrested recently for joking about rape victims, they're not fit to wear a uniform. Um, so the Met absolutely needs to be purged. Um, I I'm not sure if they've chosen the new commissioner actually. I think they did. I think Cressida Dick's successor is already in position, but these are the things he's going to have to deal with. The Metropolitan Police is the biggest force in the country. There's a lot of power with that, but people do not want to see that power wasted. They don't want to see a situation where police are feeling so overwhelmed and so under assault that they can't effectively do their job. It's a damn disgrace that you have young officers um, who are being greeted in this way, like every single time. It's hate and this vitriol that they're receiving. And instead of just condemning it, Khan needs to understand that there's a problem here. At the very least, he should be giving the organisers an ultimatum. It's not good enough to say, oh, well, it's only 200 arrests among 2 million people. No, when you have a situation where residents are boarding up and there's clearly an institutional problem at this event, it's just a crime fest. So I think it should be scrapped. And if people want to complain about that, then they can blame the troublemakers. Instead of blaming the police and everyone else, blame the troublemakers because they're the people that has caused this to happen. Um, but it's every time. This was not an isolated situation. This isn't just this year. It's every single time. Scrap the thing. It's a crime fest. And my feeling is that absolute first priority should be the residents who live there. Absolutely. Um, Let me know your thoughts. But I just think, being complacent and allowing this to continue on the hope, oh, well, maybe it will clean itself up. I think the Notting Hill Carnival has been given chance after chance and it hasn't cleaned up yet. Scrap it. There'd be other ways to make, the argument that it makes revenue. Okay, hold it in one of those big parks. Why not hold it in Hyde Park or Regent's Park? At least that's a bit more of an open space where you can have a situation. There'll still be rubbish. There'll still be potentially problems, but if it must be held, at least hold it in a place where, rather than congested streets. I mean, that obviously makes policing harder. Um, Violent thugs can just run away into someone's home, or, we could see a situation like what happened in Liverpool, where you have a gangland feud, and we end up seeing innocent people killed as a result. Um, so yeah, I say scrap it. I think it's run its course. There's some good history there. It hasn't all been bad. There has been some good history. It's been at times a rich cultural event. But clearly, it has run its course. And if I'm wrong, I would like to hear a persuasive counter opinion. It's not good enough to say there was only 200 arrests because that's only those who were arrested. I think it's very plausible that a lot of crimes went unreported and therefore people were unarrested. Or, it's not a real word, people were not arrested, but it's got problems. I think it has to end. You cannot have a situation where the people of that area are constantly having to board up and just put up with it. It's not good enough.